Okay, let's take a look at earth and frame ground improvements in this enclosure. Before we dig in, I want to give the standard warning that this video involves messing with AC power, and it has the ability to shock you and maybe even hurt you badly. So don't blame me if you do something wrong, and don't follow any advice I give in this video or any information I have in it. And take care, get an electrician if you don't know what you're doing. And that's the warning. Be careful. All four surfaces, the front, the back, the top, and the bottom, need to have the paint scraped away. I use the sharp end of a file to do that, and a sanding with sandpaper to clean the surface. And did it in convenient spots in all four locations, and in all four surfaces. These locations are all inside of the box, so they're clean. It doesn't affect the outside view. Then stuck a number 6 screw through the hole. I drilled the hole a little bit small so it was the screw tapped as it went through. Added a washer and then a nut on the inside, and ring terminals will go on top of that, and then the final nut to hold it all together after that. That's a total of 5 wires. One that goes up to the C13 or C14, can never remember which. Plug, the earth ground, frame ground position for that, and the other 2 go off to the front, back, bottom, and top of the cases. And then I could check between those locations with an ohm meter, obviously not touching the screw, but there's some of the screws that go through the case actually touch the case. For whatever reason, they either scrape the metal or whatever, and can check from that location or various other spots that are minimally painted or unpainted. I did verify that all 5 surfaces, or all 4 surfaces, and the connect up to the 4 surfaces connect up to that back center pin, the earth ground pin on the C13 connector at the back of the power supply. Alright, let's take a look and see if grounding all of the metal on this box solved the problem we looked at in the last video with noise. Right now the box is off. Let's turn on the box, and we see noise coming up just like we saw before. The output is off. It's set for 5 volts. And it's running into a 5 ohm load, the same 5 ohm load as before. And if we turn the output on, what do we get? We get the same noise. Now, interestingly, when I grab and hold on to the load or the box I touch, I don't get the noise going away like I did before. So that's an interesting result. But all of the surfaces are well grounded together. I've left the 0.1 microfarad cap on here just because that was the last set of points I took. Let's zoom in and take a look and see what it looks like. See if it looks any different. Let's see. Looks surprisingly exactly the same. At least a half a volt, always a quarter of a volt. Let's move the trigger level up again. Get some of the higher runners. There's definitely some stuff above 400 millivolts, 500 millivolts, and then it goes flat at 600. Oh, there's one. It might be a tiny bit less, but it really isn't much less. And go back down, and still quite a bit of noise. So grounding all of the metal on the box didn't solve the problem. They're all connected up to frame ground, and they're all wired together to frame ground. Well, that was an interesting and somewhat unexpected result. I really did hope that that would have solved some of the problems, some of the issues with this box. I'm wondering, now that I'm sitting here on my couch and theoretically at frame ground, I'm wondering if my house wiring isn't possibly at fault. Maybe I can dig around and find one of those little 3-pin LED thingies that tell me whether my outlet is properly grounded. It's very possible that this outlet is not grounded. But regardless, I do think it was a smart thing to do. I wish I had put that in there from the beginning. It's a lot easier to scrape that stuff away without things mounted to it, and a little less worry about keeping fragments of metal out of delicate electronics. I tried to be careful. Don't think I got anything in a bad spot. We'll do some more digging to try to see what's going on. I think the cap card's probably going to help when it comes in. It's a pretty low impedance path. Perhaps connecting the supplies themselves, the negative leads, all to frame ground would be another possible solution. I think that's what some of these sorts of devices do. I haven't done that. I've held off on that, preferring to have it be a little more floating, but perhaps it just can't be floating, and perhaps all four will end up getting hooked up together. We'll see. I'm going to do some more digging and see what I learn. Well, of course I can't find my little receptacle tester, but I've got a voltmeter, and it really does exactly the same thing. If I look at the two side pins on the 3-pin connector that goes into the back of the power supply, I get the expected 122.7. That's a little bit high, but that's nominal AC power here in the United States. Just kind of what I would expect. Now in house wiring, the neutral and the ground, the earth ground, are brought back to the breaker box in the house. And at that point, they're both put on the different bus bars, but the bus bars are grounded together in the box itself. So if you look from neutral to ground on any connector, it should be a very low voltage, close to zero. If you look from neutral to the high, you'll see the hot, 120 volts. And if you look from the hot to the earth ground, you should see the 120. Did I just say that? Yeah. You should see almost no voltage from neutral to earth ground. Maybe a little bit. There's long wires and lots of noise, but not much. What do you get when I look at my power? Interesting. Well, that's a little bit disturbing. I didn't expect to see 41 volts there. Let's look at the other side to earth ground. Oh, that's not good. That probably explains why some of the other issues I've had when I'm playing with electronic stuff. It's not 120 volts. It's odd that 92 plus 40 something don't add up to 120. But obviously the earth ground is not connected in my house. Not surprised. This house was built in the late 1800s. It's about 130 some odd year old house, and it had gas lighting back in the day. So it was brought up to have electricity in it. It's in a fairly rural location. It was brought up to have electricity in it, but when they put the electricity in, they only put in 2-wire connections. And I did remodel this room, and I thought I rewired those outlets, but it may not be connected back to the ground at the box. There's obviously something I need to dig into here and try to solve it. This is not a problem in the power supply at this point. This is a problem in my house wiring. Neat. Well, I should fix it. I have seen odd voltages out here before, and I have other rooms that I can get shocked off. So it's probably something worth solving if I want to have a decent lab setup in this room. I know that I put in some new wiring in the basement and it is good, but the wiring here is obviously not right. This house is so old that it's even got knob and tube wiring in a lot of places. Most of you probably don't even know what that is. I didn't until I moved in here. Just as a sanity check, I went down to the basement, and this is an outlet that I put in. I recognize the yellow wire, which is a 3-conductor wire, versus most of my house, which is probably still in a lot of places knob and tube. And let's see what we get when we look between the neutral on the left and the hot on the right. Okay, that's the normal 120 volts AC. Next, check from the neutral, the slightly taller pin, to the earth, the round one at the bottom, the smiley face, and we should see a low voltage if everything's wired right in the basement. Pretty sure it is. I did it. And sure enough, it's 0.4 volts. Pretty much what I would expect. The breaker panel's just on the other side of the basement, so it's not a long run and not much of a voltage difference. And there really isn't that much stuff in here, so that's about what I would expect. The next check is to go from the hot, the skinny pin on the right, down to the smiley face earth ground and see what voltage we get. And we see the 123 volts we'd expect to see. So the basement's wired right. The breaker panel does connect together the earth ground and the neutral, at least on that cable. I just have to fix the room that I'm in, and I probably should because I have a lot of test equipment in here. And I've had weird cases with the scope where I've seen AC on things that I didn't expect to see AC on. Always blamed it on cheap wall warts. I know that my room that I work in an office upstairs also has the same problem. And the place where I have my ham station, even more scary, has the same problem. I've gotten shocked off the cases of things in that room. So there's quite a bit of work to do in this house to fix some wiring. And I'll do the room that I have to do at the moment. If you don't live in a place with a basement, you might say, well, why don't you just work out of the basement? It's like 110% humid in there all the time, and even running a dehumidifier only does so much. Those stones and everything else that the walls are made out of just exude water constantly. I'm on a little hill, so fortunately I don't get flooding, but it's not uncommon around here too to get flooding, and I do get a little bit of water on the ground when there's real heavy rainfall, even being on the sort of the peak of a hill. So not a great choice. It's not bad when it's hot outside to go work in the basement because it's usually quite a bit cooler, but the humidity is just unbearable down there. Thanks for watching the saga as it continues, and I'll dig into the house wiring and see if I can fix that. Definitely want to be safe, and it's not safe right now. Making the case not connected to earth ground really didn't help, and I guess I'm not totally surprised that things didn't go well. Maybe before I connected it to that earth ground, so-called earth ground point, I was in better shape even. There's obviously some connection there. It doesn't just have no voltage on it. It's got some voltage. Strange. If you want more information, you can see our wiki pages for these products, and we have YouTube videos on them as well. We have a store in Tindy where we sell all of our cards. Thanks for watching our video, and if you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.